Well, good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Leawood Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for October 25th, 2023. Could we have roll call, please?
Members Munson.
Here.
Dunn. Dr. Pepys.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Hawk. Here. Farrington.
Here.
Bussing.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
The first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the September meeting.
I move the minutes be approved as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion for approval of the minutes from the last meeting and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. They're approved as written. We have one old business case tonight, case 53-2023. This is a case at 8032 Belinder Road. This is a request for a fence height exception in accordance with LDO section 16-4-9.4 in an R1 district. Does staff have a report, please?
The applicant would like to construct a new fence on the rear property line that would be just inside the existing fence that's there with a 6-foot tall fence.
Are there questions for staff with the board? So the plan is for just the rear fence?
Yes, sir. And you have some 3 new documents that are at your station that were submitted this morning.
This is the fence and illustrated the red line, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I believe this is the type of fence that he's asking for, shadow box or double-sided picket.
Okay. Are there other questions for staff on this case? Is the applicant here? Yes. You may come to the lectern and give us your name and address, and you may present your case.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Elmer. I live at 8032 Belinder Road. Architect by profession, single father of 2 young kids. As I apologize, in the last meeting I wasn't able to make the physical hearing. My main and primary concern is to support the beautiful aesthetic quality that exists in the city of Leawood. I respect that greatly. I'm seeking to provide more privacy of my rear yard, given a very uncomfortable situation with my rear yard neighbor. I would like to build the fence along the property line adjacent to their fence, which is a 30-inch height, very dated chain link fence. Their fence, not my fence. And I would like to build an aesthetically pleasing fence of 6-foot height, which I'm seeking the exception for, and immediately adjacent to that fence, which I believe I need the exception for. And that is my sole objective and request, or application, I should probably say. Thank you.
So you've discussed this with your neighbor behind you, and they want to maintain their own fence?
Yes. My rear neighbor and I do not speak very often. He has, when we have spoken, has made uncomfortable comments to me about watching my children in the yard, using binoculars to watch our rear yard activity. Not a very social neighbor. I, at one point last year, approached him about replacing the fence. He said that he was not interested in financially contributing to replacing the fence, and here we are today. That neighbor was also the single neighbor that objected to the application last month. That's where I'm at.
Will there be a space between your fence and the neighbor's fence then?
In order to build it, there'll be a space. This is probably my most interested point, is how much space must I leave, because theoretically with a joined property line and a fence on a joined property line that's owned by the neighbor, I'm unable to replace that fence because it was there when I moved into my property, and I have to respect that, understood. If I build a fence inside of my property line, I'm going to be eating away at my property. So I'd like to build it as close as I could as possible, so, and not to limit or prohibit the future demolition of that chain link fence should they want to replace it someday or demo it.
Mr. Chairman, Wade, could, the packet that came this morning, is the last picture the fence, the chain link that he's speaking of, or is it the one?
That is the chain link, and then if you look at your screen, that's a picture I took of the same chain link, but just outside of his rear yard.
And, Mr. Elmer, who's gonna take care of the space between it? You know, because you're gonna have a privacy fence, and you're not gonna see what's behind that fence. But your neighbor's got a chain link, so anything that grows there, he's gonna see.
Well, right now, that's correct, and right now there is wild honeysuckle that's growing on the majority of the chain link fence. That's on both properties. It's on his property, it's on my property. What I would like to do is build the fence, and then in the future, if he wants to address removing the fence or changing it, that's up to that resident.
So we received an email that's in our packet, and I presume that's from the owners behind.
Actually, it's not, and I'd like for Mr. Elmer to confirm that I think the letter that we received is
They live at,
8201, so it's the house that's not directly behind, so, let's see.
8201 Inslee, right?
It would be that house that
Okay,
sent the email.
okay. In general, they were not supportive of this.
Correct, according to the letter they sent.
Okay, all right. We've had trouble before where there's been fences built inside and the area between the two fences is not maintained. And it creates a real eyesore. So that, I think that would be a concern.
It's, arguably, it's currently an eyesore with the wild honeysuckle growing on the fence. It's a very dated chain link fence, sharp at certain points. Again,
Yeah, but it's accessible. It's very much accessible. When you put another fence in between it, things happen in between fences, that all of a sudden, big weed things start to grow and with trunks and whereas in this situation, the honeysuckle that's there is a ground cover type of a situation.
Yes.
And can be maintained and can get access to it. Again, you're the one that's gonna have the privacy fence and not see it, whereas everyone else behind there will see everything. And then who pays for it? To clean it up and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, I volunteer to maintain it. My intent is to build it so that there's not massive space in between the two fences.
Well, I understand, you want it as close as possible, but there is a property line that you've gotta stay, and that fence may be either on it or not. Does he need to get a, survey before a permit's issued?
He doesn't absolutely have to. We're going to assume the current fence is on the property line. So as long as he built it inside on his property, we would allow that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. If you look back at the 16-4.9.4 on the page for Article 4, is that, and I guess, Wade, that's a question for you. It is a question for you on the location. It says fence walls within the zoning district may be located on the property line of the interior front, rear, and side yards no closer than 2 feet from the property line. So if he can't locate it on the property line because there's an existing fence, how far in would he have to locate it so that it can be maintained between the two fences?
I think he can put it anywhere, as long as it's on his property, including around the patio and the hot tub, without going to the board. He could build a 6-foot-tall fence there. If you guys granted the 6-foot exception, then he could put it anywhere in the rear yard.
Because I think what our problem has been in cases past is that not being able to maintain between two fences and the things growing between.
That's
So if there's a mow path, or I don't know what would be acceptable, but
What if I did
it's
a
something
gate?
we've looked at in the past before.
What if I did a gate and I set it back a foot off the fence so that I can get back there?
In general, if we would deny this case, you could build a 4-foot fence wherever you wanted to. Is that correct?
In the rear yard, yes.
In the rear yard, of course.
Right. So the concept of where it is in its horizontal alignment, regardless of, well, if it were 4 feet, is that aligns with your comment that I could build it within my property in the rear yard. Is that right?
Yes, that's
So,
correct.
so if it's in theory in a 4-foot, the only thing we should be debating about in terms of a horizontal alignment is the vertical height.
Are there other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Elmore, would you consider putting a gate on this fence?
Would I?
Yeah.
To maintain behind it?
If
Absolutely.
you put a gate on it and put 2 to 3 feet of separation between the two fences, it would allow you to get back there and clean up that area between the two fences.
2 to 3 feet eats into the landscape bed and my irrigation line there. So I'd have to move the irrigation line and move plants.
Are there other questions? Thank you. You may sit down.
Thanks.
Is anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this application?
I'm a neighbor across the street at 8201 Belinder.
If you want to speak, please come to the lectern and give us your name and address.
My name is Kevin Pereira. I'm at 8201 Belinder. I've been there for about 3 years. Andrew's a neighbor when I moved in.
And you live which house?
8201 Belinder.
So next door?
I'm across the street.
Oh, across the street.
So
Okay.
I'm aesthetically watching his remodeling progress that he has on the house, and everything that he's done has just been incredible. I've been a Leawood resident since 2008, a little bit further out south, and now loving Belinder. But everything that he's done has just really improved, everything about his house. So he's a very talented craftsman and architect, and he brings a lot of value to the neighborhood. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against this case? Well, do we have a motion? If we have a motion, I think the motion should include what the board feels would be an acceptable distance between the existing fence and the new fence. So, is there a motion from the board?
I'd like to talk a little bit more before we do a motion.
Okay? Okay.
So just kind of reviewing it, we have two items, one being the location vertically and the location horizontally on the fence. And so we could propose a motion to pass it with the horizontal location setback 2 to 3 feet so that it can be maintained.
We could, yes.
Which I think we lean towards that because that's been our hang up on putting fences back to back. So I'd like to throw that out there for discussion. And then the other would be going from 4 feet to 6 feet. Looking at the chain link fence, it is dated. It has a lot of different things going on with growth and vegetation already on it. Adding a privacy fence would enhance the backyard and the 6-foot height. We have approved that on others. Usually, people are in agreement as to having it replaced or being next to one another. I think that the 6-foot tall privacy fence would better this homeowner's yard. So I think we need to consider that and see if we can find a way to appease most people.
You're saying appease the rear neighbors?
Well, if you know, not having it back to back, and if we set it in a bit, and this wood fence is an improvement upon what is there.
There has been discussions. Well, you might want to come back up. So you proposed to the, I'm sorry, you have to give us your name and address again.
No problem. It's Andrew Elmer, 8032 Belinder Road.
So you've had discussions with your backyard neighbor about taking out his fence and putting in a new fence, and they were opposed to that, correct?
The discussion was he did not want to financially contribute to it and would prefer to wait until a later date. I think that he would be amenable to replacing it so that there are not two fences back to back.
So if you pay for the new fence and replace his fence, he's okay with that, you think?
I strongly believe that.
But the question is, would he agree with a 4-foot to 6-foot change?
Well, that's what the application is for, right? So I could notify all neighbors of my intent and apply for it. And they could confirm they could, speak in support or against, I guess.
And I have not heard from that neighbor, so we've only heard from the one neighbor on the north of him.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would be preferable to build it on the property line.
I would love that, yeah. I'm not in favor of losing 200 or 300 square feet of yard. I understand the intent to be able to maintain it, and I also understand the precedent here. It's a dangerous not dangerous. It's an interesting precedent to set for neighbors in the community, right? Because we don't want to have back-to-back fences all throughout Leawood.
No, we do not.
So, and I honestly that wouldn't be my first option. So if it were, okay, I'm not going to propose anything to you all. That's not how this works. My apologies.
We could proceed with a motion based on the fact that the fence is going to be put on the property line and the existing fence will be removed. We could do that.
And how does that be enforced, that existing fence removed?
It removes it. In that scenario, it's removed. Is that correct?
But is it you that removes it or the owner that removes it? Who?
I would volunteer to pay for the removal.
You would pay for it and take it out?
Yes, it would not be fair for me to assume the financial burden on my neighbor, and I wouldn't intend for that.
Sounds okay.
So okay.
Okay.
But I have to get approval from the neighbor to demo the fence, to replace it with a fence. How do I do that within the application process or the requirements of the city? Like, what formal paperwork or documentation do I need for that?
I think that's a burden you would have to assume.
Well, that's fine. I'm just asking what I would need to officially
We would
provide as
just need
documentation.
pictures or proof that the fence has been removed, and then whenever he comes in to pull the permit, we can verify it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I kind of like that. My big hang-up's about the space that's
Yeah.
between it.
Yeah.
I mean, because all I do is see down Overland Park, everybody's putting fences up against others, and the stuff in between is just a jungle. And nobody takes ownership to it. And especially if they're the newest one there, oh, it's been there for a while, why should I have to clean it up? If this takes care of it completely,
This was my one concern with the process, is that because when I moved in, I inherited all the fences around me. And I'm not able to move forward with even an aesthetic improvement due to the ownership of the fence. It's a double-edged sword of sorts.
Well, and I guess my question to staff, and maybe even you can answer the question, if it's owned by another entity, person, and we approve to put it on the property line at a higher, and he goes back to the homeowner and says, I'm going to remove your fence at my expense, and he says no, what's the legality there?
I think it may be appropriate to get proof that he's got permission from the owner to remove that fence first before we proceed. You could make a motion and, it's conditional on getting approval that he can demo the fence. And if he doesn't get permission to demo the fence, then, the exception's not granted. But I think it might be, if I remember correctly from the last meeting, we talked about maybe he getting permission from the neighbor before coming back today.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to echo Ms. Farrington's comments from earlier. I don't think it's right to let one neighbor hold another one hostage, as this particular individual is. He's got an individual behind him who's uncooperative. It shouldn't diminish his ability to develop the property that he wants. I agree with Dr. Pepis that if he can't get that neighbor to agree to take the fence down, there needs to be enough space back there for somebody to get into it and clean it up. That space has to be maintained, but it could be as little as 2 feet. Just get in there with a weed whip and go at it. I would prefer the first option where we get the fence removed and let him replace it. But I don't think we should hold him hostage. I don't think we should let that other homeowner hold him hostage to putting this fence up.
We don't know, though, that the homeowner's doing that, though.
Right. I'm offering a second option in the motion. Primary option would be to get the homeowner behind him to allow this applicant to remove the fence. If that homeowner declines or won't go along, this homeowner still has the right to put a fence on his property. He just needs to create enough space so he can maintain between the two fences.
Would you like to make a motion then?
Oh, my. I'd like to move for approval of, hang on. Case 53-2023, 8032 Belinder Road, request for fence height exception in accordance with the LDO section 16-4-9.4 in R1 district. And the motion is that, the homeowner, number one, the homeowner will first attempt to negotiate with his neighbor behind him to have the fence removed, the chain link fence removed. And if that neighbor doesn't cooperate, won't cooperate, then this homeowner, Mr. Elmer, has the option of building his fence within 2 feet of the property line, and with the understanding that he's responsible for the maintenance of that property between the two fences. That's a long one.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion for approval of the fence height exceptions with several stipulations, and we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. You'll be officially notified in writing by the city, and
Good
I
luck.
presume you'll keep Wade notified on the issues.
Okay, thank you all.
Welcome. We have several cases for new business. The first one we have is case 60-2023. This is the property at 3904 West 149th Street. This is a request for a variance to the build line for the placement of a fence on a through lot in accordance with LDO section 16-4-9.3D in an RP1 district. Does staff have a report, please?
The applicant would like to construct a new fence in the rear yard. A request for 15 feet is needed to place the fence 20 feet from the rear property line.
Are there questions for staff? So the existing fence has been there for how long?
Actually, this is a strange case. There was a fence there that was put in illegally. Before the new owners purchased the fence, it was removed rather than go to court. The new owner has moved in and now wants to put a fence back about where the previous fence was. The neighbor does have a fence. The neighbor west has a wrought iron fence that appears to be legally placed. But yeah, there is no fence currently at this address.
Okay.
Wade, aren't there fences on both the east and west side in the back?
The one on the east side is the subdivision fence, so there is more or less, yes, but it was built as part of the subdivision. And again, the one on the west side, there is a fence, but it meets all the criteria. So there would be a jog. This fence would jog out towards the street.
Okay, it's all wrought iron, all the fences out there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Thank
So
you.
this proposed fence would not line up with the neighbor's fence?
That's correct.
Are there other questions for staff?
That is a picture of the neighbor's fence on the TV.
Mr. Chairman, Wade, I have a question. This picture that's in our packet that looks like this is where it says with the current setback, would that tie into the neighbor's fence
Yes,
at the right spot?
I believe so, yes. This was hand written by the
yeah, close
applicant,
enough.
so I'm assuming it would, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Wade, can you put up the map that has the fencing? This one. So is the orange of the proposed fence?
The orange would be his fence, yes.
And then the green, is that the existing of the
The
neighbor?
green is the one that's currently in place.
So it's just offset by 6 feet?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, and this is all done, I don't know if it's, how accurate it is. This, again, was provided by the applicant.
So the neighbor's fence, is that a legal non-conforming?
The green fence, no, it is legal and did pass inspection, so that's why I say it's probably in the correct spot.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right. Are there other questions for staff? Is the applicant here? You may come to the lectern and give us your name and address and present your case.
My name's Chris Wilhoit. I live at 3904 West 149th Street. I moved in on September 21st. So I'm going to plug into the computer here if you don't mind. Hopefully you guys can see what I put together. But the long and the short of it is, with the 35-foot setback that is currently required, it basically cuts my yard in half. So if you walk down 148th Street, which is the through street that my property backs up to, There's several other fences in my subdivision that are along that street that are in a similar position to my property that back up to that street. All of those fences, except my immediate neighbor, every single one of them is less than 35 feet setback from their property line. So keeping in line with the neighborhood consistency, there's a berm that runs along that street because none of the streets have driveways on the through street, or none of the houses have driveways on the through street. So there's a berm with community maintained trees and stuff like that along that street. All of the other fences border basically that community maintained property with a 35-foot setback. What that does is that puts my fence in the middle of my yard and separates it from the community maintained property. If you look at the picture here, where the trees are, that's the berm that lines the sidewalk and is community maintained. That's where their sprinklers are. My sprinklers run roughly on the inside of that proposed line. That proposed line is, depending on exactly where we place it, it's 22 to 23 feet off my property line, which is the edge of the sidewalk. I requested a 20-foot setback to make sure that I can stay within that. So the way our house sits in the cul-de-sac, our house is set back kind of on our property line. So our next door neighbors, their house sits a little bit further forward, so they have a lot more usable yard. My house sits back far enough that I have a wide but not very deep yard. So that's why we're asking for this variance. So I took some pictures of some of the other fences. You can see kind of how they border this, the berm with the community trees. These are all along that same street that I live on that backs up to. So we would construct it in a very similar manner to the rest of the fences in the subdivision. So this is a quick map here that I just drew up real quick. All those black marks are the fences on the south side of the 148th Street, which is where we are. We're on the far right, right there where my cursor is. That's our property. Every other one along there you can see is around 20 to 22 feet from the property line. The ones across on the north side, I didn't measure those. It's the same subdivision, but they're a little bit different lots because they're 1+ acre lots, and it's a different part of the subdivision. So, but again, they're in the same position where they border that community maintained property. That little tree line there, they border right up to it. So.
Mr. Chairman, Wade, I have another question. As we look at this diagram on the fences that are there, that are all within 21, 22 feet, would we assume that we're looking at a possible maybe legal non-conforming situation, no permits?
Yeah, at this point, I wouldn't assume anything. I don't recall any variances being issued on 148th Street, so, you know, depending on how long they've been there, they could be legal non-conforming. They could be flat out illegal. We get a lot of stuff that gets constructed on the weekends with no permits.
Got it. Thank you.
And all these fences are pretty much wrought iron?
Yes, every one of them is wrought iron, yes, sir. And ours will be too.
Are there other questions for the applicant? Well, this is a variance.
Yes.
So we have to evaluate the 5 factors, which are listed in the case here. Uniqueness of the property, hardship are ones that sometimes give us problems. So are you familiar how we do this? Basically,
No, sir, I've never been here before.
Once you presented your case, and anyone that is here that wishes to speak for or against this, then the board has to evaluate these 5 factors. And we have to vote in the affirmative on all 5
Okay,
to support a motion for approval.
okay.
So could you talk about uniqueness and hardship?
So, yeah, the uniqueness of our property is that because of where it sits in relation to the community property in the cul-de-sac, it's pushed back, so our rear yard is very uniquely constructed compared to the other neighbors in the area. So the hardship is, we've got a couple dogs and we've got some kids, and if I put the setback where is required at 35 feet, it cuts roughly 2,000 square feet out of my yard. So not only does that affect our usable portion of the yard, it creates a hardship from a maintenance standpoint, because there's then about 2,000 square feet of property that is theoretically maintained by me, because the community is maintaining technically part of my property, because my property line goes to the sidewalk, so they maintain the tree line and stuff, but they're not gonna maintain my yard outside of the fence line. So it's gonna create hardship for me. It's gonna create hardship because I would have to move my sprinklers, the community would have to move their sprinklers. So,
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
thank you.
Is anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this application? If not, then we will discuss the 5 factors, and that will determine how we can proceed with the proposal. First is uniqueness of the property.
Well, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, as you say, that's a hard one to pin down, the unique thing, but looking at the map, his house is located quite a bit further away from the front, which has encroached on his backyard, and it does show up that he has less backyard to enjoy than his 2 adjacent neighbors. Is that a hardship? To enjoy his property, it probably is, but who caused the house to be built back there? Well, it's a very narrow lot, so I think in this case, he does meet that requirement.
All those who feel that the uniqueness criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We have voted in the affirmative on the first factor. Rights of adjacent property owners.
No calls or complaints have been received.
All the
letters.
letters went out.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? All those who feel that the rights of adjacent property owners criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the second factor. And third is hardship.
Mr. Chairman, as far as hardship is concerned, I think it's been met because of what we just talked about, the uniqueness and how the backyard's smaller because of the position of the house in that cul-de-sac. Also, let me remind everybody, this is a through lot, so that we do have a street on both sides of it. And typically what we see on these through lots is that we're usually working with less space in the backyard than what the neighbors usually have. So I think the hardship's been met.
Okay. Other comments?
It would also decrease his usable space in his yard if we have to put the fence at this location.
All those who feel the hardship criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the third factor. The fourth is public safety and general welfare.
Mr. Chairman, I'll speak on public safety and general welfare, and I'm going to wrap in spirit and intent as well. The fence that's being proposed is a wrought iron open fence. So for public safety and general welfare, it's located in a location where it's not where the public sidewalk and neighborhood, and not too far in on the property as well. So it meets public safety and general welfare, again, with the type of fence, the location, and then with spirit and intent, it being the open character, all the rest of the fences are the same material.
All those who feel that the public safety and general welfare criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the fourth factor, and last, the spirit and intent. Comments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a stab at that. I think the spirit and intent's been satisfied, even though the fence is going to jet out a little bit. I'm sure with some type of landscape or something at the adjoining portions of those two areas where it's just a 6-foot section, it can be masked to the point where it'll flow just as nice. And behind the fence, we've got all those trees that are bush, I can't remember what it was, but greenery behind that area.
Plus, it's a wrought iron fence, too.
Right on.
Wrought iron fence, which just has an open field anyway.
Yes. Others who feel that the spirit and intent criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We have evaluated the 5 factors and felt that all 5 have been satisfied. Therefore, we can support a motion for approval in this case.
Mr. Chairman, I support to approve case 60-2023, 3904 West 149th Street, a request for a variance to the build line for the placement of a fence on a through lot in accordance with the LDO section 16-4-9.3 parent D parent in an RP1 district.
We have a motion for approval in case 60-2023 and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. You'll be officially notified in writing to the city.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. The next case for this evening is case 61-2023, 14201 Windsor Street. This is a request for a variance to the front build line for the placement of a fence on a corner lot in accordance with LDO section 16-4-9.3A in an R1 district. Does staff have a report, please?
The homeowner would like to enclose the majority of the property with a fence that would include a gate across the driveway. A variance for 55 feet is requested to place the fence and gate 20 feet from the front build line. So this application only deals with the front.
Okay. Other questions for staff, please? So this would be the front build line for along Windsor Street.
Correct.
So typically it would be the requirement would be what for this location?
That neighborhood has a 75-foot front yard build line.
Okay.
Does the existing house encroach that?
It does not.
Okay.
And there is a plot plan that I've placed at your station that I received this morning.
So, Mr. Chairman and Wade, we are looking at on Windsor Street, so the bottom side of this on the screen, we're voting on approving the red line versus the green line that's right up against the
Correct. The
driveway.
green line is the 75-foot build line. The red line would be the fence and the gate. You can see the driveway. It would be placed 55 feet from the front property line.
Are there neighboring properties that have fences out?
There is a home across the street that is legal, non-conforming. We did issue a permit, but that was back in 1990, before anything would even go to the board. It was actually constructed before the house was constructed. So, yes, there is a fence across the street, but different kind of case.
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment, the neighborhood, beautiful neighborhood. But the house that's got the fence that's right on 143rd has a huge front yard, and the whole property's like encased within this fence, right up against 143rd Street. This is the second lot in from 143rd Street on 142nd and Windsor. As you drive through the neighborhood, and before I got stopped by the police, because I was just hanging out, driving around, all I saw were beautiful fences from the front build line back. So there was nothing in front of anyone's houses. There were no gates. Very quiet, beautiful neighborhood, and I'm not sure gates on the driveways are what the intent is. That's my view.
Okay. Other comments or questions for staff?
And just so you know, there's several pieces of email that came in as late as 5 o'clock today at your station that I've provided you.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, also, if we remember, we discussed a couple meetings ago about gates and entrances along Lee Boulevard. And we had a case in which we all came to consensus and felt that that's not something that we wanted to start. And as you go into this neighborhood, you'll see the same thing. I'm not sure we want to put entrances and gates at the street for these two driveways.
Okay. There was a comment in the application here about the property on Canterbury Street. That was a case we had a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Where there was a
We
big
did,
creek
it did
that
go
goes
to the
through
board.
their property.
Correct. It is a different neighborhood. You do drive through this neighborhood to get to that house. But yeah, there's a very large creek in the front yard of that home. So it was one of the few homes around that really does meet the uniqueness criteria.
Yeah, I remember that case, yes. Are there other questions for staff? Is the applicant here? You may come to the lectern and give us your name and address and present your case.
My name is Kashif Siddiqui. I'm with 14201 Windsor Street. I owned the property for the last 5 years and lived in the city of Leawood for 11 years and Steeplechase subdivision. So I recently completed the renovations and finally moved in. I have 4 kids, 17, 14-year-old, also 10-year-old and 7-year-old. Also have 2 German Shepherds. Our property in Steeplechase had the fence, and but since I lived in cul-de-sac and I had much of an area that was provided there with this privacy and no trespassing. With this home, what I have noticed in the past, and you know, the past couple of months that I moved in, that we don't have any sidewalks or anything. So once the school on 143rd Prairie Star Elementary, it's time for them to leave. So I have a big line of vehicles lined up on the street along that. And the kids who walk to or from the neighborhood basically are going through the front yards, and since there's no sidewalks. To me, more of a safety issue for my family and privacy is that I have seen a lot of times that I felt like somebody's coming into our house, but then they make a U-turn and leave, you know. But still, and keeping that in mind, I'm still giving that as a space to leave that for public to, you know, make a U-turn or turn around spot for them. But having to put the gates on the property was an idea where, so at least that gives us the privacy and the security for my kids. Since the neighborhood, since I'm on the corner lot and the traffic coming in from both ways. Lately is because of the Mission is also under construction, so there's a heavy traffic going through the front of the neighborhood. I've seen others, like I said, Canterbury 14009, they have the gate on the front, and kind of along on 143rd, which is not our neighborhood, but, several other homes that have the gates on the front, so that's my main intent, to at least have the front covered for our safety. Now, I am proposing where the property line is at 11 feet from the curb, and I'm going to set back additional from the built line, from the property line, 20 feet. So I'm 31 feet away from the Windsor Street. I do have some additional documents that I printed off and kind of highlighted, so if you don't mind, I can pass that around and for you to review them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wade, I have a question. Do you have an aerial of like just beyond the site plans, land survey, that more representation of neighboring properties? So where it's situated in the neighborhood?
Will that one work for you, or?
Like more, anything farther out? 'Cause a lot of times we see a little bit more of the neighborhood so that you can look at uniqueness versus neighboring properties. Yeah, that's a little bit better. That's what I was trying to put in context.
But there's nothing here. That's an empty lot, that's an empty lot.
Okay.
These two are empty. I'm just trying to understand where the foot traffic is in regards to the school.
Which is the Windsor Street right in the front. Yeah, right there. There's a school.
Yeah, that's going to point, that's the school property. So you do have some neighbor kids that do walk from that school to their homes back in there. And that's part of the, and it's mentioned in the staff report, if they if you allow a fence to be out that close to the road, the traffic that's coming up 142nd Street, hopefully they do come to a complete stop. But we all know most people don't roll that stop sign. They're going to look both ways, but there still could be a car coming northbound from 143rd Street. You've got to consider the kids walking, riding their bicycle, skateboarding. So that is a concern, placing a fence on that corner where there's a stop sign.
And is this street used for a lot of times when you have a neighboring school, the car line extends beyond the school and around the corner and down, is it down the street? Is this where?
Are you saying pool or school?
For the school.
School, yeah.
The school. So a lot of times, one street over, parents will park and kids will
Correct.
become
Yeah.
walkers and walk to their parked parents' cars, or that's where the car line, so I guess I don't know enough about the school to know, is that where the car line extends around the corner to Windsor?
That
or-
probably does happen. That particular school does have considerable parking, so they do have a lot of space for other cars, but there probably are some that do wait over there until they get a call from their child and then go pick them up.
Are there questions for the applicant? Well, we have to go through the 5 factors, since this is a variance. Uniqueness of the property, again. Hardship is one. And I think even the public safety criterion was mentioned because of sight distance around the corners of the streets. So,
And I would like to get confirmation of the exact distance. Is it different than was supplied before, or?
Yes, basically, that's what I brought in, basically. From the curve, it's 11 feet for the property line, and then.
Okay, that figure doesn't do us any good. We have to have from the property line to the gate.
Property line to the gate will be 20 feet.
20 feet, okay.
20 feet.
So it'd be placed 55 feet.
Basically.
Yep, okay.
So Wade, what you're saying is the one that was supplied to us that shows a 20-foot is what's accurate?
So this is the property line. This will be the, so from the side is actually altogether.
So it's 20 feet, you're proposing it 20 feet from the property lines?
That is correct for the front, yes.
Okay. So do you have any comments about uniqueness or the other five factors?
I think that the uniqueness is just because of the way the property sits on the corner. It's kind of, I'm not kind of used to it for that, but I guess that a lot of the traffic going back and forth on that kind of gives us the reason, I guess, to, what can be done with that, so put the gates and stuff on. Just for that way, there's no during this line, during the heavy traffic time, nobody's making a turn over on the driveway or, having.
All right. Well, you may sit down, and then we'll address the 5 factors as a board. The first criterion is the uniqueness of the property.
Mr. Chairman, other than being a big, beautiful house under construction on a huge lot, I don't see anything unique about this. I mean, it's unique and it's got a huge yard, but that doesn't really satisfy this criteria. I don't find anything, there's no compelling reason to indicate that there's any uniqueness to this property.
Other comments?
I concur.
All those who feel the uniqueness criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no.
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 We have voted 0 to 5 on the uniqueness criterion. The second is rights of adjacent property owners.
You'll find a memo that I just received today from neighbors saying that they wouldn't like to see the fence placed there for safety concerns and didn't feel it would fit the neighborhood.
By the way, I neglected to ask if anyone is here wishes to speak for or against this application. I'm sorry. Is anyone here that wishes to speak about this application? Please give us your name and address.
Susan Olson, and the address is 14113 Windsor.
Okay.
Their house is right here, then there's 142nd, our house is the other corner. And I think that there is a long line of cars that park after school. every day, that their kids walked their cars. The house that it was alluded to that did have the fence by it, the fence driveway, that house, it seems to be like a double lot, and that is directly across the street from them. And so to me, it would look like it would match the house across the street to have two fenced driveways. It would not look out of place, and being a neighbor right across the street from them, I would support having that, and I think it is a unique situation. So.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this application? Please give us your name and address, sir.
I'm Alan Olson. I live at 14113 Windsor Street. And I also feel that the property is, so we're just adjacent, our property lines are adjacent to each other. We have a lot of trees in our property. Their property is a very large field. There's no landscaping over there. I think it's unique. It just invites someone to cut across the property. We've had school students that they go across their property, and then they also cut across our property behind. And we've seen things missing from our yard. They're kids, right? So it's not it's like things from the garden are missing off. But if you drive down there, that street, there's a very large field that it just doesn't look like it's adjacent to the home. It just looks like and then the property behind them has a fence on too. So I do think it's a unique property, and I support the proposal that he's putting up for a fence there for privacy concerns.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Well, we voted already on the uniqueness criterion, so we'll continue with the second, which is rights of adjacent property owners. And all the letters were mailed,
Yes, sir.
and no calls or complaints, all right?
Well, at the time of the report, but since, you've got the email
Except the
that was
one
sent
you-
in,
you
so
provided.
two people that are against the project and two that are for.
Okay, all right. Any comments by the board? All those who feel that the rights of adjacent property owners criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
We voted 2 to 3 against the second factor. The third factor is hardship. Discussion by the board?
Mr. Chairman, once again, when we deal with hardship, we're dealing with situations in which we can't control because there's things that are there. For example, creeks, easements, gas lines, things that have us give a variance because of those things that are in the way. We're seeing nothing like that there, and I don't feel that the hardship's been met.
Other comments? All those who feel that the hardship criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no.
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 We voted 0 to 5 that hardship had not been met. The fourth factor is public safety and general welfare. Comments?
Obstructing vision for traffic is mentioned in the report about this, so apparently that would have an effect on the public safety.
Other comments? All those who feel that the public safety and general welfare criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no.
No.
We voted 0 to 5 that this fourth factor has not been met. The fifth is spirit and intent.
Mr. Chairman, I don't feel the spirit and intent's been met either. Like I had mentioned at the beginning, we've talked about gates at the driveways, right at the street, at entrances, and it's something that we've, and especially in this area where there aren't any at all, so I don't feel that it's been met.
Other comments? All those who feel that the spirit and intent criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no.
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 We have gone through all the 5 factors and felt that all 5 have not been satisfied. Therefore, we must support a motion for denial in this case.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for denial of case 61-2023, address 14201 Windsor Street. Request for a variance to the front bill line for the placement of a fence on a corner lot in accordance with the LDO section 16-4-9.3 parent A parent in an R1 district.
Second.
We have a motion for denial in case 61-2023 and a second. All those in favor of denial, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. This case is denied. You'll be officially notified in writing by the city. The next case this evening is case, same property. This is case 62-2023. Address is 14201 Windsor Street. Request for a variance to the side yard build line for the placement of a fence on a corner lot in accordance with LDO section 16-4-9.3A in an R1 district. Does staff have a report, please?
The homeowner would like to enclose the majority of the property with a fence that would encroach the side yard build line. A variance, this was 57 feet, now it's 50 feet, is requested to construct the fence as shown on the plan.
Okay. Are there questions for staff? If not, is the applicant here that wishes to speak for this proposal? You may, again, you got to give us your name and address, and then you may present your case.
So I'm Kashif Siddiqui. I'm with 14201 Windsor Street. We're requesting for the side fence variance. Again, with that, on the side, we have from the property line altogether, which is 11 feet, and then we're going additional 20 feet back, coming up to 31 feet away from the street. Reason for that was since our yard is kind of divided where, yeah, it is a big yard, but at the same time, my plan is to build a pool at some point. But right in the back of our house, we have septic tank, and the way the layout is of the property is of septic tanks. I cannot have a pool on this side. That leaves me, you know, if I built the pool on the side of the property, would be kind of feasible for us and to have some privacy, since I cannot move the septic tank area and all that stuff. Plus that kind of gives us some space for the backyard, for the kids to play and have our 2 dogs.
Questions for the applicant?
Can you point out where the septic tank is located on the plot plan or site plan?
Which one do you want to see?
On the site plan, can you locate where the septic tank is and then which side we're looking at? Just confirm it, please.
It's the side, it'd be along 142nd Street.
That we're
So it'd be
voting
the right side of the screen.
Is the septic tank located over on the proposed garage side?
I don't know where the septic,
Septic tank is.
So that's why you're asking for the side yard
Correct.
additional? Okay.
So you said you have a septic system behind the house?
Yes.
I presume that because there's a side yard setback here, is because there could have been houses further down 42nd Street that faced 42nd Street, correct?
I don't think there is. I think this neighborhood just valued open space. That's why you don't see, I think they valued open space.
Oh, they did? Okay.
I mean, just not very often you see a 75-foot build line. Most of the homes that do have fences and 6-foot tall fences have pools. So very rarely do you see anything this elaborate that encloses the majority of the lot.
So on this lot to provide a fence, he could put a fence on the well, I'm looking at the screen here, on the left property line. And then he could go up to the front of the house, right?
Correct, yeah, that green line is the 75-foot build line. That's where he could legally place a fence.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so the homeowner's arguing, though, that the hardship would be the septic tank lines where they're located. So where this 75-foot build line right against the house is, they're wanting to locate it out there so they can utilize that extra space. So would that be a hardship that, they if it is built at the 75 build line, they can't build a pool in their backyard?
This question is for the applicant. Is it possible that you will do away with the septic and hook up to county sewer system? There may be a requirement.
Yeah, we thought about that.
With a permit this large.
Yeah, we thought about that, but the cost that attached with it was just massive. It's at least $200,000 just to kind of go around. I think that I was proposed to have the line going toward the front of the house from the back, and then go across under 142nd Street to our neighbor's built line, and then go back to where the location is for the main. And also on the corner of the property, they wanted to put a pump, like a grinder.
The only reason I bring that up, because this is an extensive remodel that's been going on for at least 3 years. Huge addition, another one being proposed. Yeah, I'm not positive, but it's possible that the LDO requires him to hook up to the Johnson County
I
sewer
think
system.
eventually, I think it would be the case, yes. If it's available in that area. I mean, is it available?
I believe it is, yeah. And if that's the case, then the septic system would be abandoned, and he could put a pool there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Are there other questions for the applicant? Again, this is the variance, so we have to go through the 5 factors, but you have any other comments?
I think it's because of, for me and my family, the hardship is that we wouldn't have much of a space to play with the kids in the back if they have, the way the fence is being allowed with the 75 feet yard line. With that and having to add pool in some place would be kind of make it really tough. So at least I wanted to add, at least from the side point, to have some of the play area and be safe and for the kids.
Do you own Lot 2, Block 4? Is that part of your ownership? On the map, it says Lot 2, Block 4. I assume that's part of your ownership. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, Lot 2, Block 4 is his property.
Okay.
And it looks fairly spacious. How much room do these children need? It looks like they, well, my opinion, it looks like there's lots of space for your children.
How big is this lot? As I recall, is it 2 acres?
1.96, yes.
Okay.
If I built a pool around somewhere here, because I can't build it on the front of it, on the back of the property because of the septic tank, and if I put the pool in that area, Lot 2, Block 4 area, that doesn't leave very much of space to
Yeah, there should be a space that you could put a pool in there, I would think. Okay. All right, any other comments? Thank you. Is anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this particular application? Please give us your name and address and present.
Susan Olson, 14113 Windsor Street. I think, personally, saying that you have to have 75 feet or whatever, 70 feet from the street, if he were to put a fence there, it would look absolutely silly. So I think the law, whoever zoned it, was not taking that into account to have a fence so close to the house. I think it's totally reasonable, totally would look very nice to have a fence, the place that he is proposing, along the side. Otherwise, his property, he has very little use of his own property. As his neighbor, I would totally support it. I think it would look nice. Everything he has done with the remodel has been absolutely immaculate, very beautiful. And, if you approve the fence, it will add to the neighborhood, and it will make the neighborhood more valuable and more beautiful than it is now, than just a big empty field that his children and dogs can't play in.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for this or against this application? Please give us your name and address, sir.
It's Alan Olson. It's 14113 Windsor Street. And we're just adjacent to their property. And I also express that in that neighborhood, there's a lot of inconsistencies on fence lines. I happen to know a couple of the people that protested them doing something. Their lot line or their fence line is not consistent with 75 feet. It's a neighborhood that when it went up, there's just a lot of inconsistencies. And his yard happens to be one that attracts the attention, so it's a park, and it's a community piece of property. I think he deserves to have a fence line in there for privacy and also safety. I think that it is used and walked across there. And he has a couple dogs that need a little space to run. And I think the variance there is totally appropriate from what he has.
Anyone else wish to speak about this case? Well, if not, then again, this is a variance, so we have to go through the 5 factors and evaluate each one. The first is uniqueness of the property.
Mr. Chairman, it's a little bit challenging to find the property is not unique in the case, last case, and looking for uniqueness on this case. I think looking at it from the fence viewpoint on the side yard, and the fact that this particular house has a septic system, which is very unique, almost unknown in the city anymore, makes this particular property unique as it relates to this side yard fence.
Side yard only?
Side yard only.
Okay.
Other comments? All those who feel that the uniqueness criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the first
Side yard
factor.
only, okay.
Rise adjacent property owner is the second one.
Well, we've heard from those that are for it, and we've got a email communication of several who are against it, so it's kind of a draw.
Everyone's been notified, and
Yes, sir.
okay. All those who feel that the rights of adjacent property owners criterion is satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
Mel, how'd you vote? We voted 3-2.
No or yes?
3-2 in favor.
Okay.
The third factor is hardship.
Mr. Chairman, I'll speak on hardship. I think in this case with the side yard setback, the septic tank existing, and if you look at the map itself, the gradation, it slopes downward from the front of the property down the side all the way back. So I do see this as there would be hardship for them to have to build that fence right alongside of the house and not be able to use the space due to the septic tank location and then also the grade there.
Other comments? All those who feel that the hardship criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
We voted 4-1 in favor. And the fourth factor is public safety and general welfare.
Mr. Chairman, good fences make good neighbors. I think this particular case, the public safety and general welfare has been satisfied.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add on that. In our previous case, we had voted negatively because of the sight lines with the fence located on the front. So if you pull up that plot plan that shows this side yard, the green against the house, I want to point out that it's not on the screen.
Mike, could you put that on the screen, please?
I want to point out that, I don't know if the line can be drawn from the corner over the green corner adjacent to the house on the front, over to like where it would extend. There's no site obstruction on that corner, which was what was the concern on the front, on the front side, the first case we were looking at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can draw that on there for you.
Okay, can you draw it on there so that I'm trying to explain the best I can? Exactly. So I think in the previous case, the concern was at that intersection, the sightline, cars not being able to see, but with it being back, that would not be an issue. So I do feel like the public safety and general welfare is met on this one.
Other comments? All those who feel the public safety and general welfare criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the fourth factor, and last is spirit and intent.
Mr. Chairman, I'll speak on spirit and intent. The fence that's being proposed is, I believe, the wrought iron open fence that was provided. It meets, there are other fences, not a lot in the neighborhood, but it does meet the spirit and intent of that area.
Other comments? All those who feel the spirit and intent criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. We have voted on all 5 factors and felt that all 5 factors have been met, and therefore we can support a motion for approval in this case.
Mr.
Chairman, in case 62, 2023, 14201 Windsor Street, request for a variance to side yard build line for the placement of a fence on corner lot in accordance with the LDO, section 16-4-9.3A in an R1 district be approved.
Second.
We have a motion for approval in case 62-2023 and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You'll be, motion passes, you'll be officially notified in writing by the city. And the next case is, again, the same address. This is case 63-2023, 14201 Windsor Street, request for a fence height exception in accordance with LDO section 16-4-9.4 in an R1 district. The staff have a report, please.
The applicant would like to enclose the rear property with a 5.5-foot tall metal fence.
Questions for staff?
Staff, question. Would, in view of the approval, the denial of the first case, the approval of the second case, will this then apply only to this second case of the side yard?
Yes,
Thank you.
because there's no case was approved for the front, so it's just an exception.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That would exclude the gate.
Well, he won't have a gate now, because the gate was in the front, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm confused. So we're approving a fence height change for the whole fence, correct? Correct, yes. Okay, all locations.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
But it's just it won't include the front
Well,
with the
the
gates. So it's gonna start from where we just approved.
It would extend off the side of the house, the line I drew for you, over to the side yard.
Yes.
And then go down around.
can you put that back up on there to just kind of clarify where the fence would be located in the front now, that what was denied? So there would be a fence on the front. It's on that 75-foot build line.
And there could be one over,
There, yeah.
that would go over to the house, right?
So the house on this
Well,
front.
I guess
would
there's a
stop there.
driveway there. No, there couldn't, would.
Yes, on the front of the house, it would extend north to 142nd Street, and then east to the rear property line, and then across. That's all backyard.
I'm talking about on the front. Like, you have an open-ended fence right there.
From the garage to the right. Attaboy,
Yep.
attaboy.
Yeah, that would be permitted.
So in looking at what you've just drawn, there are not going to be any fences, the remaining red lines on, looking at Windsor Street. Is that correct?
Yes, it will be on the red line. That was approved in the previous variance for the side yard.
So there could be a gate,
yard,
there could
okay.
be a gate across our driveway, right?
No, no.
No, well, yeah, as long as it comes.
I didn't think the gate was approved.
It could actually be right here.
There could be a gate there, right there.
Yes, sir.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, can you show where it would extend to connect to the house?
What's that again?
It would extend to connect to the house, like where you have it, your starting point, other side.
Yeah.
No, the other side.
Yeah, that scribbly line all the way to the property line.
I meant on the other side, to the north.
Over
Yep,
here?
There we go.
Yeah.
Where it would connect to the house. Because that's a front door right
Well,
there.
yeah, the green line is basically the house, so it has to stay behind that corner of the house.
So it would tie in somewhere to that house, the existing house.
Yeah, so this would be, yeah, right there. As long as it stays behind the front build line and the front of the house, he's okay.
So we're approving the height for everywhere you have black.
Correct.
Yes.
And the side yard, that's adjacent to 142nd Street?
Correct, yep.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Other questions for staff? Everybody clear now?
There was included in the materials, this is going to be a wrought iron fence
Yes, sir.
with the stone posts.
Yes, sir. It's part of, most of the stone posts are actually in place now.
I saw that.
Yeah,
They'll remain?
correct, yeah.
Okay.
You may present your case. Give us your name and address again, I'm sorry.
I'm Kashif Siddiqui with property 14201 Windsor Street, proposing the fence height variance. We propose 5 feet along the property line where the fence will be placed in between the stone posts.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess those are the pictures. So on the driveway we were talking about, I think one of the things that I think that this is the fence type will be the style fence, I guess. I'm not sure if the style of the fence will be the one that is top, this part right here.
Okay.
And basically it's flat like these between the stone posts.
Okay.
Also, my original plan was to have the gate on the front, but to kind of close off the property with the drive, where now it's being approved. So the gate will most likely look similar to this, I guess.
Okay.
So the fence request is for 5.5 feet, but the gate could be 6 feet.
Just the way the design is made. Yeah.
All right. But in this case, the gate's going to be moved back.
Right, correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that would look nice.
Do we need to mention the gate in the motion?
You can. I don't think you have to because it is the gate. The gate is allowed to exceed the 4 feet, but you could mention it just to be clear.
Yeah. I've seen gates like that in other properties in Leywood, so it's not, as long as it meets the setback requirements, it's all right.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this application? If not, well, go ahead. Please give us your name and address.
Susan Olson, 14113 Windsor Street. I think that looks very nice. I would support it. I think it's nice to have a little bit of a taller fence, and I think it'll look nice in the neighborhood and be a good addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve case 63-2023, 14201 Windsor Street, a request for a fence height exception in accordance with the LDO section 16-4-9.4 in an R1 district.
We have a motion for approval of case 63-2023 and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No? Motion passes. You'll be officially notified in writing to the city. The last case for this evening is case 64-2023, 12001 Norwood Road, request for a variance to the build line for the placement of a fence on a corner lot in accordance with LDO section 16-4-9.3A in an R1 district. The staff have a report, please.
The applicants would like to replace an aging fence that has been in place for over 2 decades. A variance for 5 feet 4 inches is needed to replace the fence in the exact location. So the dark black is obviously the property line, and the red is where the fence is.
Okay. Okay. Are there other questions for staff? Is the applicant here? Please give us your name and your address and present your case.
I'm Nell Collier, and I live at 12001 Norwood Road. And that storm that came through about 2 months ago, where all the big trees fell over all over town, so we had some limbs fall on the old wooden fence. And we said, okay, well, the fence is broken, let's replace it with a wrought iron fence, thinking everything would be fine, but I guess it juts out like 5 feet more than what the rules are. So we just want to replace the old fence with a wrought iron fence where the old fence was. And there is a flower bed, you can kind of see it, and there's a flower bed in front of that old wooden fence. Well, on the one, do you mind if I move that? We have some flowers, so we have to inset the fence, then we have to move the flower beds, and there's a little bit of hardscaping there by the gate, and then the sprinklers too. So it would just be nice to put the fence back where it was.
Are there questions for the applicant?
And it is the neighborhood norm where on some of these corner lots, where the fence does jut out a little bit from the corner of the house. We're in an older neighborhood, and it's not like all cookie cutter, and the houses are kind of, the corner houses are angled funny. So there are quite a few of them.
Well, as you heard in previous cases, this is a variance. So we have to go through the 5 factors.
Okay.
And uniqueness and hardship. Could you touch on those briefly?
Well, we'd have to move the sprinkler, move the flower beds and the hardscape, and it would also basically make our backyard kind of non-functional to for kids to play soccer in, because bringing the fence in makes our little weird pie really small. Because we already have about 1/3 of an acre, but this side yard right here is really just a huge area that already is not enclosed in our backyard. So if we bring that fence line even more, then our little enclosed area is just really small.
Okay. All right. Questions for the applicant? Thank you. Is anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this application? Well, if not, then we have to go through the 5 factors. The first is uniqueness of the property.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I've seen in several years of doing this as odd-shaped a lot and as unique a location of the house on an odd-shaped lot. I drove by this, virtually no backyard. I mean, it's very difficult to ascertain where the lot line is. If you didn't have the Ames map, it'd be impossible to tell. It's very, very unique in my mind.
Other comments? Others?
The board has gone on record of always being able to replace a worn-down fence with a new fence in the same location.
All those who feel that the uniqueness criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the first factor. Rights of adjacent property owners is the second. Staff notes that letters were mailed, no calls or complaints have been received.
Correct.
Any other comments? All those who feel that the second factor, rights of adjacent property owners criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the second factor, and hardship is the third factor.
Well, the applicant cites what, if they had to put the fence according to the LDO, they would have problems with landscaping and some other issues, so I think they've met this one.
All those who feel that the hardship criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. We voted in affirmative on the third factor. The fourth factor is public safety and general welfare.
Mr. Chairman, I'll speak on public safety and general welfare. The fence has been in place for decades where it's at. It's served a purpose and has not affected public safety and general welfare, so replacing it would do the same.
All those who feel that the fourth factor, public safety and general welfare criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We have voted 5-0 on the fourth factor, and the last factor is spirit and intent. Comments by the board?
This just enables the applicant to preserve this unique look of the
The
neighborhood.
neighborhood is going to be better off with this action.
All those who feel that the last factor, spirit and intent criterion has been satisfied, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. We voted in the affirmative on the last factor. We have voted on all five factors. We've felt that they've all been met. Therefore, we can support a motion for approval in this case.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for approval of case 64-2023, address 12001 Norwood Road. Request for a variance to build line for the placement of a fence on a corner lot in accordance with the LDO, section 16-4-9.3, parent A, parent, in an R1 district.
We have a motion for approval in case 64-2023. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. You'll be officially notified in writing to the city. That is our last case for this evening. Do you have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We stand adjourned until
Hell freezes over.
sometime in the future.